This is the Ocho. This is the episode number 8. Here we are. I can't believe it. It's phenomenal. What's going on today, guys? Welcome to episode 8 of Monday Metal Mayhem. Yes, the weekly series that I'm still doing 2 months in. Okay, so last week I told you that this was going to be a 2-part series because basically, to be honest, the riff I wrote last week was a little bit difficult to play, and I just needed more time to kind of fill out the song, make a full track out of it, which I did, and we're going to play that in just a moment. But first off, a little housekeeping. If you've been enjoying my new weekly series, this M3 series, Monday Metal Mayhem, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel so that you can see the episodes as they pop up each week, every Monday. And don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoy the content as well. All right, first I'm going to drop the track on you guys, and then afterwards we will do a thorough mix walkthrough, the whole breakdown. We'll talk about all the different aspects of this track. But this week was all about production, all about putting the final touches on the song, right? To really make it stand up, stand out. And this one, I'm really proud of this one, guys. I think this one hits pretty hard. And I have to say that I think my mixing skills are getting a little bit better. I'm always striving for at least 1% better every time I go at it. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. You know, I'm just I'm a middle-aged guy doing it on my own, right? I don't have any 25-year-old friends who've been doing this their whole life. They know how to do it. They came out of the womb knowing what AI was and all that stuff. Now, anyways, I'm rambling. Let's get into the track now, and then afterwards we're gonna do the whole mix walkthrough. All right, guys, Logic up on screen right now, and we're gonna go through the whole track. But like I mentioned earlier, this week's episode was basically an experiment for me to see if I could really put the finishing touches on the track using production, and specifically, for the most part, automation, to really make this track shine. The original riff was pretty basic, not extremely interesting. It was okay. Let's, play a quick clip of that real fast. Pretty cool, but when you write a riff and you play it like 100 times and you're completely sick of it, that's where I am right now with this riff. So that made it a little more difficult for me to really finish the song because I was like over it already, but it's a decent riff. Last week when I wrote the riff and recorded it, I couldn't seem to get rid of this like stereo weird misaligned out of phase thing that was going on. It turns out that one of the screws on the neck pickup here had kind of backed itself out, and the spring was causing the pickup to like lay against the low E string, which was really weird. It was just literally touching the strings, buzzing, and I was wondering why I was getting this weird, I couldn't get rid of like the stereo chorusy weird phasing issue. So if you saw last week's episode and you thought the recording sucked, that's probably why. So I fixed it. That's never happened to me before. That was really weird. Stay. Okay, so we're gonna go through the track right now. First off, let's just look at the automation right off the bat, because that's really the production I'm talking about here that really made a difference with this song. Specifically the rhythm guitars. I have here 5 different things that are being all automated just in the first 4 bars of the song, because I wanted to give it that lo-fi vibe. That's a common move, but here it really made a difference because at first I had the track with no automation here in the beginning, and it just comes on hard and that's it. But I wanted this to really kind of go next levels. Got a frog in my throat. Okay, so just the rhythm guitars alone. Let's listen to that real quick from the beginning. So like I said, the first 4 bars is kind of a lo-fi thing, and I'm going to show you exactly what I did. This is pretty common stuff here. I'll just actually pull up the CQ. I did a low cut and a high cut simultaneously, and then they span out when you want it to drop. Right there. So actually, I didn't do a slow sweep on this one. I just wanted to kind of hit really quickly, so that's why it's a quick jump. You can, of course, when you're doing automation, you can ramp it as slow or as quickly as you want to. As you can see here, I've got a pretty steep curve for the cuts, if you're familiar with what this looks like. Okay, so then after the EQ, it needed something else. So I added this lo-fi cassette. This was a free plugin. I'm all about the free plugins, guys. If they look cool and they sound cool, I'm all about it. So this one does a pretty cool job of giving you that lo-fi vibe, and it's got a lot of stuff you can tweak on here. I just found some settings that worked for me. So what I did here in the beginning was I just have the dry wet set to like, I don't know, 82%, something like that. And then it just quickly shuts off to 0. So essentially just kills that whole plugin at that same moment when I have the drop hit. So that was the second thing I did. After that, there was a gain move of just a couple, not even a whole dB. I think I was like, dying over here, guys. I think it was, okay, 0.04, and then I go to 0. So not even a half decibel gain. So it's a little bit quieter in the beginning. So again, just gives you more of that lo-fi sound. It's quiet. And lastly, I had a mono to stereo move also on the same gain plugin. So it's mono in the beginning. At the drop, it goes to stereo. So just it widens out. It just sounds really cool. Next up was, what did I do for the bass? So the bass, I did something similar here. I have an EQ move, low frequency, just going from 118 back down. And then also little gain, same thing as well. It's just a little bit quieter because I kind of just want it in the background. The drums, again, I've got this funky EQ going just for the drums, just for the beginning section, and then it just falls away. It just turns off the EQ altogether. So altogether, it sounds something like this. So that was definitely, production-wise, that is what you expect to hear from a professional sounding recording. You know, that's my take on it. I had a lot of fun doing that, and I guess I put more work into it than it really needed to be, but I want to make sure it hit right, you know? And it does. It sounds pretty damn cool. I do a lot of gain moves here. You know, I've said this before. It's beneficial when you have things stacked on top of each other that they're not masking or overpowering or causing your compressors to pump too much. So you want to back some stuff down when you have something else more prominent coming, you know, to the forefront, like I have with these low gain guitars right here. I introduce a little synth guitar, which was actually Archetype Rabia, and it came up with a cool synth sound. Let's listen to that in solo first. And on its own, it sounds pretty nasty, but in a good way. And, you know, when you have it with the full track, sometimes it's interesting to see how something so dirty and disgusting can sound so kind of clean in the background of a full mix. And I actually transposed this down a little bit because, well, a whole octave. Here's what it was originally. Yeah, so that sounded pretty cool, right? But, in solo, it's a little dirty, it's a little nasty. That's okay. So back to where it was, an octave down. And I also debated whether or not I was going to actually use that tone as my bass tone for the whole track. I decided not to, but right there, it just fit nicely. But I had to use automation to drop out the rhythm guitars just a little bit, the low gain and the high gain rhythm tracks, so you could still hear that in the background. Right, okay. Let's talk about the bass here for a minute. So this track was just all heavy bass. There was no low gain or clean stuff on it. And, I do a different bass tone every single time. I've said it before and I'll say it again. So this week for the bass track, I used Parallax again. And I just took the default preset and tweaked it a little bit, made it work for me. And here's what it sounds like. Pretty cool. Not bad, right? I don't know. That was my bass tone right there in a nutshell. I'm doing some kind of crazy EQ on it, cutting lows and highs and some mids apparently. And what else do we have on this? My GSAT, the saturator plugin is great. It's one of those plugins where you can barely notice what it's doing, but it just makes it sound fuller or warmer because it adds some harmonics in there gently. You can overdo it too if you want to, if you really want to crank it up. More tube stages gives you more of that effect, but I just wanted to warm it up a little bit. And then of course, compressor, I'm using distressor on this one. And let's see what it's doing. 3 to 4 dBs, okay, almost 5 dBs gain reduction. And it's pretty gentle, I would say overall. And then lastly, I'm using a wideband dynamic EQ to kind of just tame any of the transients, the harsh peaking ones basically. Especially here at around, 110 hertz. So yeah, that's the bass tone this week. I always run it into a bass bus, even though, it's its own track this week. And compressor, as usual, is sidechained to the kick drum, so it'll dip out just a little bit whenever the kick hits. And again, the gain plugin is going to go on most of my tracks so that I can adjust the volumes in automated mode. Drums, I'm doing Trivium drums again this week, guys, and I did run it to multi-out into the DAW. So I was able to tweak some of the drums here a little bit. I didn't do a whole lot on these drums, actually. Okay, so as you can see here, I didn't really take the time to adjust the velocities of the drums, so a lot of it's just pinned at 127, which I know you're not supposed to do. If I was actually going to release this track, of course, I would take the time to tweak all of the velocities, hit after hit, and make sure that it's more realistic sounding, right? But for the purposes of this song, for the weekly riff series, I just wanted this thing to hit hard, so I just kept it, as is. And I utilize pre-made groove tracks, but then I completely alter them, so I don't even know why I do that in the first place. And then there are instances where I write drum parts that, a real drummer wouldn't play this, but you could. I mean, it's not more than, 4 hits at once. You could play it, but I don't think it's something typical that a drummer would do because I'm not a drummer, so I don't really know how they think, how they play, what works best as far as like, what I'm saying, right? So I just write drum parts that are sometimes a little bit wacky, like this, for instance, and maybe a little boring too. And let's look at this one. So stuff like that, I do drums the way I do drums. It's going to be unique. And quite honestly, if there's anybody out there that wants to collab with me, if you think if you enjoy the music that I play on the whole, and maybe you're a great drummer and you want to lay down some tracks or you want to do some drum programming on top of my riffs, I'd be open to it. Yeah, so I could really use some help from a drummer out there or somebody that's really great at drums, programming drums, or just likes doing it, because I don't even enjoy doing it, quite honestly. I love how they sound when they're done, but I'm just not a drummer. I could use your help. So somebody out there, let me know if you're interested in collabing. Drop me a comment down below. Thanks. Yeah, so that's pretty much the song. And let's just check out the last couple sections here really quickly because I think it just kind of pulls it all together. So what I do is I reintroduce the original intro riff as the outro as well, which is kind of cool. I boosted the volume on it so it hits a little harder, but I'll shut up. Let's just play it. That's it. And I just did that last note. I just raised the volume on it just before it shuts off. So I thought that was kind of cool. Again, a production trick that you might want to try out. Sometimes you want to fade it out slowly. Sometimes you just want it to end on a drop. In that case, I just wanted it to end on that note. Now this here at the end of the session was a bit that I just took out of the song. I deemed it not really relevant to the rest of the song, although it sounds pretty cool on its own. So let's listen to that quickly. And let me know what you guys think. Should I have left this in? Could this be a separate, track, a separate groove or something else? I don't know. Let's see. Thought it sounded cool, so I left it there, as kind of a placeholder in case I ever want to come back to it in the future. But for the time being, it's not part of the song. Okay, so really quickly, let's just talk about some of the plugins I use here and a little bit more. I want to give you guys a little more in-depth information as far as, how I kind of mix this stuff. So first off, obviously my drums are all going to a drum bus. Drum bus is going to my stereo out, which is over here. And this is a pretty simple session, I would like to think. On the whole, bass bus as well is going to the stereo out. I'm not really running a submix on this. If this was really a more involved song, or if I was, again, going to release this, I'd probably run submixes. That way you can actually have a separate reference track that doesn't go through your stereo out. And you can listen to your reference track while you do your submix, and they won't affect each other. Which is something I just learned recently. It's a pretty cool technique, but maybe we'll get into that another time. So then after that, I've got my rhythm guitars. All I did was double track this week. Pretty simple. These are my main heavy rhythm guitars. And if anybody's interested in my presets that I've used for this track or any previous videos, let me know in the comments. I'd be more than happy to share those with you. If nobody wants them, then I'm not going to bother. But this is my main heavy riff this week, or my main heavy rhythm tracks for this week. Soldano SLO was all over this session. That's primarily what I used. Check out these settings if you're interested in them. Screenshot it, do whatever you want to do. I've started using heavier high pass and low passes on my rhythm tracks because I realize there's a lot of information on both ends that you really don't need to hear and just mucks up the mix. I just like the sound of a little more high-end air and presence. That it's a personal thing, right? And then my high-pass filter here is at 100. I'm usually anywhere between like 90 and 110-ish as far as my rhythm guitars, heavily distorted guitars goes. I don't know why I put this on here, but I do. Just a little added EQ, cut out a few annoying frequencies there, and then I run it into my guitar bus. So what I found works good for me, for my distorted tracks, is, like I said, cut at like anywhere from like 85 to 10,000 K. And then if you still want some more presence and some more air, use a high shelf and or just use some boost points, at some frequencies that sound good, that just makes it sound a little more present and airy. I'm sure I could add a lot more, but I'm not in a well-treated space to be mixing properly. So, it could probably use more high end. It sounds a little bit too much in the room here. I got to get a treated space, and actually I will be moving to a new space quite soon, so stick around for that. Compressor didn't use that one. TDR Nova, I use this one, my dynamic EQ. Doing a little bit here with the palm mutes. Let's check that out. Give you the delta on this one if I can. I want you guys to hear the delta, so you can hear what's being removed here, which is just very, very little. You can't even hear that. Okay. That was pointless. I can hear it in the room, but it's very, very subtle. The palm mutes weren't too bad and don't seem to build up too badly with this SLO 100 amp here that I use, which is nice. Let's see. I didn't use the tilt EQ. That's just on my template. So the stuff that's, grayed out is just part of my normal metal template and stuff I'm not using for this session. Okay, so for the mid gain tones, which are just a little bit lower gain, I'm also using the Soldano amp. Let's check it out here. Using this one. And here are my settings for this. So if you want to, screenshot them, if you like the way they sound, cool. And I'm using no post effects. This is just straight dry. So. Just some clean chords in the background. Well, not clean, but slightly edgy chords in the background. All right, so for this ambient lead tone here, which I didn't really even play in the playthrough because it wasn't much to it, I'm using Gojira. Sounds like this. Again, it's kind of nasty on its own, just like the synth guitar, but in the mix, it sounds pretty good. Yeah. And I did keep this, and I did kind of keep this a lo-fi setting, so there's a lot of highs and lows cut out here. I promised you guys I wouldn't do cleans this week, and I stuck to it. There's no cleans in this song, and definitely no cleans on this intro. All right, guys, so that's pretty much it for this week. I have to say that this weekly series I've been doing is really helping me to become more disciplined in my writing and focusing my creativity on making sure that I get the essentials done, week after week, because it's a challenging task to try to write an entire song or even one solid riff, week after week, at least for me. I'm somebody who usually I would take a month to write a really good song. And yeah, this song can use a lot more, obviously, as far as arranging goes and some more layers, maybe throw a solo in there. For 1 week's worth of work, I think it's pretty decent. And I appreciate the fact that not a lot of people my age probably are listening to this kind of music, right? I got my inspiration and my influences from other bands and from other content creators, people that are a lot younger than me by decades. It's just a joy to be part of this whole community. In general, I just love the music community, the guitar community. There's so many great channels out there and so many great people that, subscribers and viewers. You guys give me some good feedback and I really appreciate that. Make sure that you're subscribed if you're not already. You may not even realize that you're not subscribed because if you've been enjoying my content, if you've been watching my videos, the YouTube algorithm is just gonna push new ones to you as recommended videos, so you might just see them pop up when you open YouTube. But make sure that you're subscribed. I really appreciate it. Until next week, I'm out of here. See ya!